Welcome in, everyone, here to Full Circle, Florida. The United States buys more than it sells. That's why we have a trade deficit with China. President Trump has been arguing that access to the American market is a privilege, and the cost of accessing that privilege should be border security and stopping the flow of illegal drugs like fentanyl. Essentially, what good is a store if you don't have a few regular customers? And we happen to be the world's biggest. That is the simple backdrop of this fast-moving and complicated trade war that the White House is now waging. The question is, will you end up paying for it? Here's my conversation this week with the founder of Samurai Success, David Olcott. Well, let's get right into it. I mean, I feel like we're going to get a new development on this every 24 hours or 48 hours as the world turns. But we know that the trade war with Mexico and Canada, it is on hold for now, but the tariffs on China are in effect. China has already retaliated. We buy everything from cell phones to sneakers from China. What do you think the ripple effect is going to be of this trade war on business owners? Do you think they're going to pump the brakes on investment and hiring?
Well, it's interesting because if you take a look at this high stakes poker that the administration is playing with the rest of the world, if you will, China, Canada, and Mexico. Mexico and Canada had things, or we actually had things that they wanted. They want the jobs that we're going to be able to offer that we're actually pulling over from China, and they want those jobs. So that was a little easier negotiation from my perspective, if you will. China is looking for something different, and we just don't have that to give. So it's going to play out a little bit longer. So what we're suggesting to our clients is not pumping the brakes. It's actually just lifting off the gas, because as Americans, we like to full on, full off kind of thing as if we're racing. This strategy right now, this cycle if we're in, is just slowing down a little bit and plan and be patient.
So getting the leverage on this situation could take a little time to play out. What about the consumer? How much of this will hit everyday Americans who, as we all know, we're already struggling. A lot of us are struggling to pay the bills after years of inflation. Certainly any more inflation that's sparked by this is going to be tough for a lot of people to swallow.
I would agree with you. As a matter of fact, the two things that are really going to potentially happen with a lot of certainty is prices are going to increase. And of course, then China has this other opportunity to play with shortages, which of course then hits on supply and demand, and prices increase again. So we're really strategizing with our homeowners and our business owners in the same way. If you've got materials that you have in your business or at home that are really supplied by China, take a look at being able to get those reserves in place today. Increase your inventory with those supplies, because those prices are going to increase. And what don't increase, you're going to see a shortage of, and that's the game is China's going to be playing with this administration to get back this pushback from these tariffs. So you could really take advantage of this as getting those materials in advance now where the prices are where they are, because they will be increasing.
David, it's easy to get into a trade war, but how hard do you think it will be to get out of one once this thing starts? Just like an actual hot war, the longer you're in one, the more mission creep tends to come into effect. You lose sight of the real original objective. So if this thing with China drags on for several months or even a year, could the market price in sort of a permanent uncertainty factor when it comes to these tariffs? And could that increased costs linger much longer than what businesses and everyday consumers are being told?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that, because that's exactly what the game that China can play is, because they play this long game. And we have, changes every 4 years in our administration. Of course, this administration is going to be, moving on, and there's going to be a new administration because this is Trump's last opportunity for that. So China knows this, and they're going to be putting as much pressure to deal with this administration. If they can't, they're going to hold off as long as they can. But I will tell you, the people who really dislike uncertainty are the Fed, Wall Street, and bankers. The interesting part when you really study financial people is they go through these oscillations, if you will, but then they find their own natural certainty levels that they can start playing with. So even in the midst of chaos, they find this weighted average they start playing at, and then things start to resume to normal. So that's the path we're really looking for.
And I know President Trump and the administration is basically saying, look, we're trying to get away from this idea that we need China, but who do you think needs who more? Does China need us, or do we need them? And is that really the whole point of this, is to be more independent as a country?
I think COVID taught us a lot of things, not just about the COVID itself, but also the supply chain management that we put ourselves in, having things so far away from us to be able to get supplies that we really desperately need. And so I think that's the big push. But this has been going on for the last several administrations, is pulling things back from China from a manufacturing stuff and start actually getting them over to allies that we can work with, Mexico, Canada, much closer to home. So this is going to be a game that's played over a long period of time. Right now, in this moment, we need China because it provides so much of our products and services. As that dissipates, though, they're going to be in an interesting position. And what they're really wanting after this game, of course, is Taiwan.
Yeah, well, carrot sticks and the game of risk that is the world competition that we're living in right now. The question is who's going to pay for it and where's the reward when it's all said and done. David, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Next on Full Circle Florida, Tallahassee Road and the deals in the making that impact you. Welcome back in here to Full Circle Florida. Let's bring in our Tallahassee correspondent, Forrest Saunders, joining us from the state capitol with the very latest that's going on there this week. Forrest, we've seen this change of tone between the state legislature and Governor DeSantis. Where does the temperature stand on that right now? And where do you see that progressing in the weeks and months ahead?
The people that I'm talking to in the governor's office and the people that I'm talking to in the legislature, they do think that this kumbaya moment was always going to come, and they expect that this means that we will have another successful regular session when we kick off here in March. Of course, it's a successful session if you are a part of the GOP supermajority. I mean, Republicans still control both chambers of the legislature, meaning that they can craft bills at will. If you've got the governor on your side, that means that you're a lot more likely to get those bills across the finish line, get his signature, rather than having to try and do some kind of override veto thing like what we saw with the potential of that special session.
Which loose end do you think is really going to get some progress come March? Would it be condo reform, which is forcing condo owners all over the state out of their home with these new regulations that cost a lot of money? Would it be insurance? Would it be all these cost of living issues that, the leaders of the House, Danny Perez and the state Senate, say they have a lot of ideas to tackle these cost of living kitchen issues that people care about?
Yep.
Or is the politics of immigration going to take over?
I think you're going to see something with immigration. I mean, there are hundreds of bills that are getting filed as we ramp up to session, so you'll probably see more than what was discussed during those special sessions in some capacity or another. But beyond that, I think lawmakers recognize they have to do something to tackle affordability given the mandate that they got from voters during the 2024 election. So you can expect to see programs that offer tax incentives. It sounds like the governor wants to make the My Safe Florida Home program, that home hardening program that's become so popular, a permanent program. And so you can expect to see more of those kinds of things. He's got $2.2 billion in tax relief that he's proposed in the budget. But you can also maybe see more in the way of condo reform as well. I mean, that's an affordability issue as much as anything. And I think there is such an appetite for that from the lawmakers that live along the coast, whether that's on the east or the west coast, that something has to be done there. They just don't know exactly what yet. And so you've got 60 days to figure it out. You've got committee meetings and ideas that are going to pop up, and eventually we will likely get some kind of bill. The question is, will it fix the problem? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's all of the details, as they say. Forrest Saunders in Tallahassee. Forrest, thank you for your insight. Next on Full Circle Florida, how much change can one country handle, and who elected Elon Musk? Welcome back in here to Full Circle Florida. Let's bring in our panel this week. He is the host of the Ryan Gorman Show, weekday mornings on News Radio WFLA and iHeartRadio. Ryan Gorman back with us here this week. And of course, my trusted voice of reason, ABC Action News political analyst, Dr. Susan McManus. All right, let's start with the changes that the Trump administration is actively pushing the button on, from immigration raids to tariffs. The federal buyout offer, which apparently is now on hold because it's being fought in the federal courts, as a lot of things are. The reshaping of government as we know it. The president's comments about Gaza this week, that Palestinians should not go back. They should build something new and they should be resettled in other countries. Wasn't received very well. How much of what President Trump is saying and ordering through executive order will actually go through? How much of this is the Trump bluff routine? And is he actually going to be able to deliver on any of this?
Obviously, there's a little bit of each, and everybody's watching it. for example, he had a very, very successful rollout of the executive order on keeping men out of women's sports. There's even a very interesting idea that you go 80-20. You try to accomplish things early on that 80% of the public agrees with and save the tough ones down the way. Because the reality is, and he's only been in office 3 weeks, the reality is a lot of these things are not solvable by the executive order. The implementation has to be done by different levels of government. Different levels of government have different political heads. The same thing, you have to involve Congress. And now let's not forget one of the big changes that we're going to see this time. Everything he does is going to be challenged by Democrats in the courts.
Well, and it's also not funded. The federal buyout is not funded. I mean, they don't have the money right now appropriated for this stuff. So I don't know how far you can go with it.
Some of those kinds of things they're going to play out. And of course, I think immigration is one thing where we could really look at, and you can see both sides of the coin. So it's been a pretty successful rollout in terms of the arrests and the deportations of some criminals. But you're also starting to get to that point now where it's reaching a place where Congress is going to have to step in and act because they're running out of room to put all the people who they've rounded up, all the illegal immigrants, all the criminals who they've rounded up in different cities.
Right, and you talk, I mean, I know you talked this week about Guantanamo Bay, and is that really a practical solution with all they're going to have to do to retrofit that place to handle that amount of people? But NBC News reported this week that some migrants arrested in Trump's immigration crackdown have been released back into the U.S. because the space constraints and court orders, which led ICE to release migrants on monitoring programs after they were arrested. So basically catch and release all over again. Is the Trump administration running into the reality, Susan, that it's one thing to campaign, you know, the promises you make, it's another thing to actually govern?
That's an age-old discussion, and the bottom line is you can't ever implement 100% what you've promised on the campaign trail. And I think an important thing that we forget in this, and I know the viewers don't want to hear this, but right now, a lot of the emphasis is on next year's midterm elections, because we know historically, even Obama would be the last one where this was the case. A person that comes in and flips parties as head or the president of the United States, in the next midterm election, they suffer a lot of losses in the Congress. So right now, Republicans are focused on doing what they can because they know that there's a high likelihood that they might not have control of the House. So they got to go while they have control of the Senate and the House.
Fascinating. The clock's already ticking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's why you're seeing so much work on the Trump agenda and trying to get as much of it passed as quickly as possible right now, because they, even though it's a very slim majority in the House and a slim majority, although a little bit more room to maneuver in the Senate, they have control right now. They might not have control for too much longer. So that's why there's a big focus on the executive orders and then also this big, beautiful bill that they're working on in Congress.
Yeah, and he's a one-term president no matter what, so even more reason for him, motivation-wise, to push the pedal to the metal. How much change can one country handle, though, all at once? It seems to be happening. I mean, you know, we're retooling, or the Trump administration is retooling the government as we speak. Elon Musk is involved. A lot of people are questioning his role. The last thing you want while Trump and Musk are changing out the car parts is for us to get sucker punched by a terrorist or an enemy country. What is the framing of this? Is this change long overdue or change overdone?
It absolutely depends on your politics. For Republicans, it's change long overdue, and already you can see for Democrats, it's change that doesn't need to take place. It's, again, the classic. We're right back to partisan polarization, and what you watch and who you listen to is how you frame what information you believe.
I'm confused because I watch everything. I literally have to watch all sources of news, conservative, liberal, middle, to get calibrated on what the picture is.
Yeah.
And even then, you kind of question.
I think what we're watching right now, and this is what's so interesting, I think most people don't have a problem with us taking a magnifying glass to the federal government and finding out, well, what exactly is going on? Where is our taxpayer dollars? Where is that money going? I think it's how it's being done when you have someone like Elon Musk kind of seeming to run the show on that front. I think that's where more people have a bit of a problem with it, but there's definitely a shakeup going on. And it was a change election. This is what a
Absolutely.
lot of people voted for.
And on that point, who elected Elon Musk? I asked that, sarcastically, but is it the price of admission for Trump 2.0, or did voters know about this? They didn't care. How do you assess the Musk factor?
They absolutely knew about it, and they didn't care, and a lot of people don't care. But what is interesting, there was a new poll that came out, even though we're believing polls less and less, that did show that even among Republicans, there's a little bit less enthusiasm for him than there used to be. But on the other hand, we're also watching what are independents thinking about a lot of this. And on some of these issues, the independent vote went for Trump, but now they're starting to pull maybe a little bit in the other direction. But the idea that he handpicked somebody to come in and clean house, that's hardly new in politics.
Well, if the stress test is, this is what he did to X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and it ended up working because it's, making money once again. But does the country really want to go through that kind of pain sponge, if you will?
I think people recognize that Elon Musk and his team, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, they were going to take a look at everything and see where there were inefficiencies. It's the fact that they're actually doing a lot of things seemingly outside of how it would normally work that has people uneasy. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump is president. And so the buck stops with him. And if he's signing off on what Elon Musk is doing, I think a lot of people will accept it, at least for now.
What do you think? I mean, I know it's on hold right now because the federal judge says wait, but what if everyone took the buyout? I mean, don't you have to have some sort of functional government in place in some of these institutions?
Yeah, we're talking about a small percentage, though. I mean, the goal was 5 to 10%, and we'll see if they even get there. The federal government's large, and there's, I think, a lot of room to maneuver here.
All right, stay with us. We got more to talk about. Final thoughts when Full Circle Florida continues. Welcome back to Full Circle Florida. Back here with our panel, Ryan Gorman and Dr. Susan McManus. Final thoughts, and if I may, just thought of my own here, based on our coverage that we do here at ABC Action News and Full Circle Florida, the relationship between government, state or federal, and the people it's supposed to serve. Every day we report on people getting hit with high insurance, inflation, power bills, people who lost their jobs, they can't collect unemployment, just functional basic things. And I'm just wondering, is government broken? What do you think about that?
It's not just government. People's distrust of institutions in this country, as documented very well by Gallup over the years, is plummeting. It's of concern to everyone because it's not just government, it's big corporate America, it's big media, and in general now it's becoming even social media. People are at loss to what they can believe, so they believe nothing. And that is a dangerous point for our country to be headed in.
I know you hear this on your show too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I talked about some of the reporting you guys have done. And I think there's a part of the culture that's broken in the sense that we gravitate towards sensationalism and things that elicit, real emotion, anger, things like that. So those kinds of pocketbook issues, which are a little more complex and a little more boring, they often get overlooked. They don't get shared on social media like the other stuff.
Hard to cover the complicated.
Yeah.
All right, I got 10 seconds left. Casey DeSantis, is she gonna run for governor of Florida? Is that going to happen?
Who knows, but it's certainly interesting in light of there's going to be a vacant lieutenant governor's position.
One more big decision DeSantis is going to make at some
I'm just
point.
saying it's all about the Super Bowl anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, Super Bowl. All right, well, yeah, who do you got?
Chiefs.
Chiefs?
Chiefs.
Chiefs. I want to see history. We'll go Chiefs. It's a trifecta here. All right, guys, thank you so much. And thank you for watching us here on Full Circle Florida. We hope you will join us again here next week. Have a good one.